And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Our apologies for the delay there. Some technical difficulties, but we are all set. Pierre, how are you, my friend?
Fantastic. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
Still shoveling out, but it's good. I'm getting in shape.
Unbelievable.
Using muscles I didn't know I had.
You
So
might get some more, huh? You might be
yeah,
getting
it's
some
looking
more.
that way. We'll see. They're debating if it's going to go out to sea, but we'll see. Pierre, lots of news around the hockey world. Let's start off with the team that you focus on the most, the Montreal Canadiens. We'll get to the game from last night, but news breaking this morning that they fired their goalie coach, Eric Raymond, and replace him with Mr. Marty Marciano?
Marco.
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 Marco. I'm gonna call him. I'm gonna call him Rocky a lot. It's just gonna happen. It's just gonna. I know I'm gonna do it. So I'm apologizing up front to him. So yes, they bring in Marco Marciano. Pierre, I just know what I've read today about Marco, but given the fact that Dobish as well as Fowler, and then more recently Montembeault in his conditioning assignment have been down there working with him. It seems like they feel like there's just more of a connection right now between the goalies and him than there was with Ramon. I don't know.
It could be. There also might be a philosophical thing too. That's why I said almost a month ago that the general manager and the
Yep.
coaches should have the goalie coach on speed dial. They should know every day exactly what his practice plan is, what he's doing to make the players better, and if they are making improvement or not. I said that a long time ago, as you're aware, Jimmy,
Yep.
because you could see this. There was some technical stuff that was clearly missing from the NHL goalies. They were looking small in goal. They weren't anchored. They didn't read plays very well. They had a hard time fighting through traffic. And so we'll see how it plays out. Now, I don't like seeing anybody get fired. You know that. I know that. And I don't think anybody does like to be fired. I
No.
don't know of one person that's enjoyed being fired. But, sometimes you got to do stuff for the well being of the organization. We'll see how this plays out. Well, because I'm going to give you an example. Zach Burke, nobody remembers that name, was the goalie coach in Ottawa. He was a good one. Trust me, I worked with the guy. And new people came in and they fired him and brought in Justin Peters. And Justin Peters is a good friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say that the goaltending in Ottawa is better now than it was before.
No.
So just because you fire a goalie coach doesn't mean the goaltending is going to get better. And that's my cautionary tale to the fans. Gilles Meloche worked with me, and he was an amazing goalie as a player, and he's a really good goalie coach. When the Pittsburgh Penguins asked Gilles to move aside and start scouting, and they brought in other goalie coaches, I mean, you can't say that their goalies were better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something to think about. It's a very fickle position. That's all.
I've heard, a lot of people talking about obviously on the airways all day today, Pierre, and a lot of people are referencing what the Islanders did earlier in the season when they fired Greco, their goaltending coach. And people say, well, look, it kind of woke Sorokin up because it guilted him. It made him feel guilty, like maybe he had something to do with Greco losing his job. Is there a bit of that sometimes when a goalie coach gets fired where maybe you're trying to, give the goalie a guilty conscience to get his game together?
Usually you don't want to mess with the psyche of a goalie.
I wouldn't.
I coached in the league when goalies used to have roommates, and then all of a sudden people thought this is a bad idea. Just let them be on their own. So I actually coached in the league when the goalies got their own room too. So I've seen the difference. So I don't know about that part of it. I just think more times than not, and maybe I'm from a different generation, more times than not, you stay out of the way of the goalie. You just stay out of the way. You help them if you're the goalie coach, but if you're the head coach or a position coach, like a defense coach or a power play coach, you don't really have, except to say hi and see how they're doing, you don't really have much interaction with them. You just don't.
Here, I want to go back a few years so it would have been 2023 Bruins Panthers first round series. It went 7.
Matthew Tkachuk, game-winning goal.
Yes, okay. And you remember in the middle of that series, I want to say it was around game 5 or 6, there was a big debate as to whether they should switch to Swayman and replace Allmark. And they didn't do it. They eventually did it for game 7, but it was all for naught. And the Panthers won the series. And after the series, I think we touched on this on the podcast. I remember it. Jim Montgomery said, well, I was just listening to goalie Bob. It was Bob
Essence, yeah.
Yeah. So my question to you is, how much of like when you get into situations like that, whether it's the playoffs or whether it's the regular season, how much of an influence does a goalie coach have in when a goalie starts or the rotation that you use? What's his role in that? Is it vary?
He should provide, he should provide intel, information, and his gut feel. But when it's all said and done, you got to make the decision as a head coach.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
You really do. You know, the other day, Toronto's a good example of what you just brought up. They played Anthony Stolarz, who hadn't played in well over a month. Well over a month. And they throw him in against Vegas on Marner's return. That was a bad decision. And if you read the quote from Craig Berube, that decision was made above my pay grade. So that was a GM telling the coach, you're going to play this guy.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before. Owners own, presidents preside, managers manage, coaches coach, trainers train, scouts scout, players play.
Exactly.
That's it. If you break the chain of command from that model, you are doomed to fail.
Yep. It's true. And it pretty much 90% of the time when we see it get broken, it does fail. Pierre, just want to tell our listeners too, we're going to be joined by, I guess, a little later than usual. Kevin Kurz of The Athletic will be joining us to discuss the Flyers and the mess that has engulfed Philly lately. We gave our part on it yesterday, but we'll get some insight from Kevin about that later on. So what I want to do is touch on a few news items, and then we'll take a few questions, if you don't mind, from our listeners, just so we make sure we get to them.
Yeah, no, I love it. Let's go.
One thing I want to talk about, great story with Buffalo last night. They go into Toronto, they get that win, but more so with Darlene and what he went through. Him and his partner lost their baby girl recently, and then he goes out and gets his first hat trick of his career. That was great to see for him, but just Buffalo really sent a message to Toronto, like, we're above you now in this division. We have surpassed you.
Oh yeah. Buffalo might do that to everybody in the division. They're playing hard. They're playing big. Their top line is so good with Benson, Thompson, and Tuck. Can't say enough about their identity line with Kozak, Krebs, and Malenstein. They got a lot going on there. You talked about Rasmus Dahlin. He's been really good. But what about Matthias Samuelsson?
Oh my gosh.
He's a beast out there, man. He is set. He dishes out hits. He played at Western Michigan, for those that don't know. And I coached his father, which is something I'll never forget. I just think the world of his father, Shell. And I don't think people realize how good this guy is, the player right now, because he had a tough start to his pro career. And a lot of people are saying, it's not physical enough, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. Now he does everything. Buffalo's for real. Toronto was no match for them last night. Shots in the second period were 17-3. And I actually heard an analyst on a studio show say Toronto actually played a really good period. And then the host had to say they got outshot 17-3. What are you talking about?
Yeah. It's interesting sometimes. You wonder how much they're watching.
Well, no, because if you don't have the general manager or somebody in the organization leaking to you, you can't do your job.
Right.
People are starting to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I want to get back to Samuelsson, though, there, because I'm glad you brought him up here. I think people like you who watch almost every game out there and people are on top of it, they know who he is. And I think his name is starting to spread out there. But am I on a line saying that he should get some Norris Trophy consideration right now?
A little early for that. I mean, just on his team, I'd have Dahlin getting more of it than him. Rasmus has been really good. He's been really good. Bowen Byram's been really good.
And remember, they were saying they wanted to trade him last year. Remember?
Well, I don't know who was saying that. Somebody was, but all I know is I'm going to go into one of our most loyal followers, Scotty Bowman. I remember Bowen Byram's draft year, and Scotty wanted Bowen Byram drafted badly. Mm-hmm. He had watched him so much, and he's like, "Oh, this guy's going to be really good." Well, Chicago didn't take him.
Nope. And then he finally has found a home in Buffalo, and good for him the way he's playing there. Another thing too, before we move on from Buffalo, and I just can we stop saying that this is all because of the GM change? This run that they're on started before Kevin Adams was let go. Go look at the records. Go look at it. They were already on, I believe, a 3-game or a 4-game win streak at that point. Let's stop that right now.
Yeah, that's nonsensical.
Because getting lost in that false myth right now is what a great job Lindy Ruff has done in turning this season around, and he took a lot of arrows, Pierre, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for where they are right now.
I want to see all those people who said he's too old to coach in this NHL and he doesn't understand the tactics of the new NHL. Where are those rocket scientists? None of them had ever coached a game in their lives.
Exactly.
Where are they now? I want to see them. Come out and identify yourself.
And
apologize. Write an apology.
Yeah, it's unreal. I mean, people were ready to fire him again, saying he needs to retire. Hey, by the way, what's Jersey doing these days?
Who?
That Jersey team he used to coach. How are they doing these days? They're in trouble.
That's why I said who?
Here, that loss last night.
There were a couple teams that really had to win last night,
and they didn't.
Toronto was one, and New Jersey was the other.
Yep.
There are a couple teams that had to win last night, and they weren't able to do it.
Yeah. Would you put?
I'll tell you who I'm a little concerned for right now. I'm not kidding around. Is Washington. Little concern for Washington. They went down like a free beer at a frat party last night in Seattle.
Did you see?
They went down easy.
There was a shot late in the game. The camera zoned in on him, on Tom Wilson, and the look on his face. It was almost like he had just lost a playoff series, Pierre. Yeah. You know that, just that defeated look.
Well, he's engaged. He cares.
He I think a lot of the other guys need to have that look right now too, and realize that if they don't wake up soon, this season.
So you got to think right now, based on last night. St. Louis is fully in business. Like their door is open. You got to think their door is open. Florida's getting close to the point where their door is going to be open, I would think. Washington better wake up here the next little while. Their door is going to be open. Toronto, I think last night put a kibosh to the end of them. They go out west. They play in Seattle. They play in Vancouver. They play in Calgary. They play in Edmonton. Then they're done for the Olympics. If they don't get of those 8 points, if they don't get 6 of those 8, they're not making it.
Yeah,
they're making it.
I agree. And let's just while you have that up here, I got to say too, another team that we see the San Jose Sharks have gone out and made some moves, to kind of.
I watched them last night against Vancouver.
Right, they're in a playoff spot. And they very well could make it, but kind of in a parallel. In the first half of the season were the Chicago Blackhawks. And there were some times where I was wondering, man, could this team actually sneak into the playoffs? I think they've kind of, I don't think regressed is the word. I think they've returned back to their normal progression of a rebuild. Would you agree?
They've plateaued.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm interested to see what they do at the deadline. We keep hearing Connor Murphy's name. I wonder if there's going to be other veterans that are attractive to teams that are in the playoff hunt that they could unload.
Chicago makes steady improvement. I wouldn't worry about them. I think they're going the right direction. Just like, hey, I give full credit to Mike Greer and Dougie Waite and everybody in San Jose, Ryan Warsofsky, Brian Wiseman.
Yep.
I watched their team play really closely last night against Vancouver. I was working till really late, so their game was on. And they're making amazing. Like, it doesn't hurt having Celebrini, doesn't hurt having Will Smith. Doesn't hurt having Dickinson on the back end. Left shot defenseman like that, a heck of a player. Askarov continues to evolve and get better. I mean, there's a lot to like there, a lot to like in San Jose.
Yeah,
they deserve some, and they were smart. They went and got some older guys on defense. You look at it, their birth certificate. They just put Nick Leddy on waivers. He cleared, but they brought in older guys to help their younger guys learn how. It's so smart. Barclay Goodrow was just smart. Just smart. He had been there before. They knew him. He's popular. I think about where the Rangers are right now. They play a huge game tonight against the Islanders, for the Islanders more so than for the Rangers. But the whole thing in New York started falling apart because of the way Barclay Goodrow got treated. Jeez. The whole thing. He's just one player. And then it went to Trouba, and then it went to Kreider, and then it went to Keandre Miller, and then there were the rumors about Zibanejad, and then no re-signing of Panarin. Like, you can just trace it all. But it all goes back to Barkley.
Yep. And we called it on this show when it happened. I remember talking about it right away. We said, this may not seem in terms of, star quality, like a big move or a big mistake, but there's players, man, it doesn't matter what their stats are. It's what they bring in other ways to the team. And they underestimated that.
That's so good that you said that, Jimmy, because I agree with you. One of the real cool things about work last night, I was working with Tony Marinara and I was working with Max and I was working with Brian Wild, and I just love doing that show. It's so much fun.
Great.
And Max and I were talking about the stuff in Toronto.
I'm glad you're bringing this up.
And you know what, Jimmy? Like, I get it. I'm probably an old curmudgeon and people aren't going to like my take on this, but I get it. It's nothing personal. I just think you got to have standards when you're part of being a professional athlete or part of being in professional sports. I've always tried to live like that. I remember once doing the show with you and I hadn't shaved because I just got off the road and I felt so embarrassed. I was like, I want to apologize in advance because I didn't shave that day. And I felt bad about it. And I was talking to Max about it last night and we're like, why would he wear a muscle shirt in the press box when his teammates are down on the ice, getting booed and suffering and getting pummeled, and he's up there like it's a comedy show.
Yeah.
It's not funny.
Yeah.
And look, people can take shots at me. I don't care. I would never do that.
Pierre, and I get what you're saying. I think you're, and not even I'm from a different generation than Nylander and a lot of these guys playing today. It's not necessarily that we think it's the end of the world that he did what he did, but it's the grander scheme of it makes it the end of the world, because you made the great point there. This team is in a spiral right now, and it's tough. And you're doing it in a market like a fishbowl like Toronto. They don't need more fuel into the fire that's engulfing them right now, and he provided it. Like he just
on more than one occasion.
On more than one occasion. At what point do you stop thinking about yourself and realize you're part of a team? Nobody's saying that because you wear a suit and a tie that you're going to win every game.
Oh,
you're not saying that by any means. But all we're saying is don't provide extra ammo for everyone that's firing bullets at you right now.
Talking to Max last night too, and I thought it was a breath of fresh air. I have so much time for Max. I think if you're a francophone person or you understand French, you should listen to him. He's good on hockey. He's very good on hockey. And I said to him, Max, you played for an Original Six team and you played for teams that weren't Original Six teams. I worked for an Original Six team at the start of my career as a broadcaster in Montreal, but I coached non-traditional teams. They weren't Original Six teams in Pittsburgh, Hartford, and Ottawa.
Yep.
So I noticed a difference. There's no question. There's a difference. Max completely agreed. And he's been in Anaheim and he's been in Vancouver and he's been in Pittsburgh. Like, he's been in a lot of different places. Mm-hmm. And he says, you know what? There's a different aura about an Original Six.
Yeah.
There definitely is. There is.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't tell me, and this is no disrespect to other arenas in the NHL, but you can't tell me that walking into the Bell Center for a game, whether it's us doing our job as a reporter or an analyst or what have you, or as a player, or as management or a scout, or as a fan, there's something about it. I can't pinpoint it, but you feel it when you're there. And if you can't say that it feels the same as when you walk into Anaheim, and that's no knock on Anaheim. No. They do a great job, but you get it. And everyone I've talked to that's never been, and then they go to their first game there, they call me or they text me and say, I get it now. I understand it. And it's time, I think, that some players start to embrace that rather than just kind of brush it off. So
I think the Canadiens players have. I think they appreciate everything that they have. I do. Yeah. And all you had to do is watch them play last night. Yep. They're a team that cares about one another. Watch Nick Suzuki and his post-game scrums. Brian Wild works on that show with us. He does such a good job bringing in tape and interviews, whether it's with Jakob Dobish last night or whether it's Nick Suzuki or whomever, Josh Anderson from time to time. He gets great clips, but the guys are respectful. They're standing in their dressing room and you're seeing all these legendary figures behind them in pictures and you're going, wow, could you imagine going to work in there every day? That's pretty neat. Pretty neat.
For sure. Well, you know what? They're not an Original Six team, Pierre, but they've got a lot of history. They did a lot of winning back in the day, and they've got a passionate fan base as well. And that's the Philadelphia Flyers. And not to talk about them And what's kind of been a roller coaster lately is our good friend from The Athletic, Kevin Kurz. Kev, how you doing, my friend?
Good. How you guys doing? Good to see you guys.
See, I know Kevin's a Philadelphia guy now, but I know him from San Jose too, so it's all right.
That's right, Pierre. Yeah.
Good to see you, Kevin.
Time there. Good to see you too, Pierre.
Really good to see you.
How you guys doing with the weather down there? Are you buried under some snow or what?
A little bit. I got lucky. I flew back from the Flyers road trip on Saturday before it came, so just sat around and watched football all day on Sunday, like probably everybody else.
Good for you. Good for you. Hey, listen, we're watching a lot of stuff from afar, what's going on in Philly right now, and we see a good portion of the fan base saying, get rid of Rick Tocchet already. Like, what's going on, Kev? Talk to us.
Well, I don't know. That's coming from some corners of the fan base that they're just angry over what's gone on here for the last 10 years, which, I can appreciate, right? They're frustrated. There hasn't been any success here. And for a long time, there hasn't been any sustained success, for 15 years now here, frankly. So, I get there's some frustration out there, but listen, Rick Tocchet's done a good job so far. This team is still in the playoff mix. I think a lot of people expected them to be buried in the standings again this year. You've seen some growth from some young players like Cam York, like Trevor Zegras, who I know is slumping a little bit right now, but he's still, has had a decent season so far. Jamie Drysdale's improved. Noah Cates, Bobby Brink, Owen Tippett. So, his primary job right now is not necessarily to make the playoffs, even though that's what this team, that's what the organization would like to do. But his primary job is to get younger players to take the next step and to turn into better players. And I think in a lot of cases he has done that and is doing that now. Now, listen, it hasn't all been smooth sailing, right? They had this month hasn't been very good. They had a 6-game losing streak in which they looked terrible. They've had trouble getting up for some of the more important games. So they're, again, it's not been perfect, but I think if you look at this as a whole, certainly Rick Tocchet has done a fine job so far. We'll see where it goes, but right now, I mean, to call for his head right now is asinine, frankly.
Last year, the lightning rod player was Cam York. I think we all saw the video with Ian Torts, and obviously got a little bit personal and ugly. Mm-hmm. Cam, as you correctly say, is really taking his game to the next level. This year, it's hard not to think the lightning rod player is Matvei Michkov. What has gone wrong there, Kev?
Well, as it's been said many times, he came into camp out of shape. He wasn't ready to go. He's a player that is never going to be a speedster in terms of his skating. So when you're having trouble getting up to speed and you're not very fast in the first place, it's going to look like what it's looked like with him throughout the most of the first half of the season. So, he has been a little bit better lately. We've seen this before where he's had his moments. He's had some games. The skill set is certainly there. But it's been a process. So, I don't think anyone's willing to throw in the towel yet on this guy. I think he realizes, and we haven't talked to him a whole lot, but when we have talked to him, I think he realizes he made a mistake. He's already said he's going to use the Olympic break to stay in the area and train. He's going to come back to the area earlier next summer and for training purposes to make sure that he's ready to go at the outset, because it has been pretty ugly at times. But the other thing is he's going to go into his third year next year of his entry level deal. Mm-hmm. If he wants to get paid coming out of that deal, he's going to have to do something. So I would think that's a little bit of a motivator too. So for me, it's going to be most interesting to see how he looks coming out of the Olympic break, because, obviously a lot of guys probably around the league are going to be a little bit rusty after taking 3 weeks off from games. He's said that he's going to dedicate himself to trying to get ready for that stretch run. Let's see how he does over those final, 6 weeks or whatever it's going to be.
In your assessment right now, we were just talking about San Jose and the job that they've done during this rebuild of insulating the youth with some veteran experience and character guys. What's been your assessment of how Keith Jones and Daniel Briere have done that so far?
Well, they kept around guys like Travis Sanheim and Travis Konechny because they viewed them as cornerstone pieces and guys that were going to be, leaders and help, bring along some of those young players so that, when they do plan on contending again, which they hope isn't too long from now, mm-hmm. Sanheim and Konechny especially are going to still be in the primes of their careers. And I think when you look at those two guys, their seasons have still been pretty good. Travis Sanheim's going to be on the Olympic team again. So obviously there's people around the league that think highly enough of him to name him to a stacked Team Canada roster. And Konechny, he didn't make that team despite being on the Four Nations team, but offensively, he's really come on lately. Now, he's still trying, I think, to figure out. He turns the puck over too much probably, and I think that drives Tocchet crazy a little bit at times, but he's still such a valuable offensive player. And when he's going offensively, he's really leading this team. So, those are the guys that I think they want to lean on here. And, they bring in a guy like Dan Vladar to solidify the goaltending, and I think he's been very good. Christian Dvorak has been a pretty good two-way center for this team. He's a guy I would probably say he's a veteran. So, it's a process, but they also need some of these young guys to keep taking steps. And that's guys like Noah Cates, like Cam York, who we've mentioned, like Jamie Drysdale, like Michkov, Owen Tippett, I think has been very good lately. So, at some point, I don't think there's any illusions here. They're going to need to make a big trade. They're going to need to take a chance to bring in some key high-end talent, because from a talent perspective, this team just isn't there yet, which I think everybody would admit. But I think the way they look at it is if they get internal growth from young players, whether that's guys on the roster now or players that they've drafted, those are guys that they can potentially use as assets for that big trade whenever it comes.
What's the long-term prognosis for Porter Martone? Is he coming out of Michigan State this year, or is he going back for another year?
No one's explicitly said that he's going to be here at the end of the year, but I think reading the tea leaves a little bit, that's the plan. I don't think he's going to be at Michigan State for more than a year. I think they're happy with the way he's developed. I think they'd be fine with him burning a year from his deal if he joins the team late. That's what I think right now. We'll see how the rest of the season goes, but I would be surprised if we don't see. And also we have to see how far Michigan State goes, right? I think the Frozen Four happens, but by the time that gets over, I think there's 3 or 4 games left in the NHL.
There's not a lot of games. I know that.
Yeah, so we'll see if that kind of changes it. But I think right now I would be more surprised if we don't see Porter Martone turn pro at the end of the season than if he didn't.
How about Denver Barkey? What's been your take on the short glimpse you've had of him?
Yeah, he's been great. This is a guy that 3rd round pick, 95th overall. He was taking the same spot as Patrick Sharp. Mm-hmm. And I remember I texted Patrick Sharp when Barkey had his NHL debut in Madison Square Garden. He was one of the Flyers' best players, and I texted Sharpie. I said, "Well, it's that 95th overall magic," and he got a kick out of that. And but Barkey's an undersized guy. Again, third round pick, like I said. So certainly no one, I don't think, expected him to be here so soon. Even Briere has said they thought he would spend at least a year or 2 in the minors, but he was their most consistent player on the Phantoms. And he's a guy that, the foundation of his game is his hockey IQ and his hockey sense. And he'll be the first one to tell you that. And so, there's some guys, as Pierre, I'm sure you could probably rattle off a list of a bunch of these guys. They come up to the NHL and they find it easier because everybody's in the right position. So Barkey, he's playing with a very smart player right now in Sean Couturier, who, Couturier's offense isn't there anymore. His hands aren't there anymore, but he's still a smart player. He still knows where to go, and he can still create turnovers and be hard on the walls and that sort of thing. So, Couturier with Barkey has made a lot of sense. And if you look at the underlying metrics for that line, Owen Tippett's been on that line too, and he's maybe been the Flyers' best forward for the last 3 weeks. That's been a very important line for the Flyers, and Barkey is as important to that line as anyone so far.
That's such a good take. I love the hockey sense factor. Philadelphia had one of those guys years ago named Mike Richards. He was pretty good at the hockey sense thing. He was pretty good at it. I'm concerned about the fan base there. I know how important the Philadelphia Flyers. No, it's a very important franchise. Yeah. And for years, Kevin, now the season ticket base keeps dwindling. And I don't know what you're hearing or seeing, but can you share some information with it? Is the passion coming back, or is it still kind of, Metza?
Well, I think, we saw some games in January where I think they had 4 or 5 sellouts in a row. Okay, and good. Yeah, so I think Michkov coming over early and having the success he had last year helped them out in terms of ticket sales this year. Certainly it's not full on a nightly basis yet, but it's tough. Sometimes it's hard to separate what you see with your own eyes in the stands with what you see online from the, two online portion of the fan base where it's fire everybody, fire Rick Tocchet, Michkov should be skating 20 minutes a night, everybody stinks. So, it's tough sometimes for me, and like it probably is for everyone to separate those two because, listen, I'm probably on social media more than I should be as well. So, but this is an important year. I think that can't be understated. The front office said that they want to try turning a corner. They obviously that was reflected in the moves they made over the summer. For the first time under Danny Briere, they started adding players. The players that they've added have been good additions. Devore, Vladar, Trevor Zegras too, for the most part. So, and then they signed Christian Dvorak to a 5-year extension. To me, that said, well, you know what? You got to make the playoffs this year. You've signaled that you want to take a step forward. You've signed a guy like Dvorak, who was a guy that they could have traded at the trade deadline and probably gotten a pretty good return for. You got to make the playoffs now. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes. I think if they do make the playoffs, they're really going to make some pretty good headway in terms of becoming more relevant on the local scene. Because you're right, Pierre, that's been a problem. It's all the Eagles, all Phillies, and even the Sixers, they're doing some good things too. And the Flyers are sort of the low man on the totem pole right now. They've got to make some inroads there. And that's why I think that this stretch run is going to be so important from an organizational perspective on the ice and off the ice.
Jimmy, just before you go, I want to ask Kevin this because I know you want to wrap it up, but I thought one of the hardest things I saw all year was poor Garnet Hathaway's turnover and obviously not scoring it in the empty net in Utah. Jimmy and I watched that. We felt terrible. How did that play out internally? Like, you're around these guys all the time, and how much support did he get from his teammates in that situation?
Yeah, it was that happened in the Utah game. That was last Wednesday. And when we walked in the dressing room afterwards, Hathaway was basically all the guys were out of the room. Hathaway was still there in his full gear. Just, and he's a heart and soul guy. He's a guy that everyone in that room loves, not just for who he is, but the role he plays, right? And everyone knows that this year has not been his year. You don't have to be Scotty Bowman to break that down. And he was a healthy scratch for the Islanders game on Monday night, which was it was interesting just because that's a game against that team. You would think when he's on his game, that's the guy you want in the lineup, but he hasn't been. And you certainly can't argue with Tocchet taking him out of the lineup because he just hasn't done enough. So, he's got another year left on his deal. I think it's worth mentioning too. He had a pretty good concussion in the second half of last season, and that cost him, I think, about a month. And you wonder and you worry, I think, a little bit that concussion sort of set him back, and is he ever going to be able to return to the player that he was before that?
See, Jimmy, this is why it's so good. We get somebody like Kevin that really cares and is there, boots on the ground, and then you find out that concussion may have been worse than what people are saying. Yeah. And I'm with Kevin on this. The first time I ever saw Garnet Hathaway play, he was playing for Andover, and his line mate was Chris Kreider. I'm not kidding you. And that's a lot of years ago.
Yep.
And I watched that happen in Utah. I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for this guy. That was painful to watch. It really was. Yeah.
It's great. Before I let you go, just quickly, what has Tocchet done to help Trevor Zegras find himself again?
Yeah, he's been very honest with us. Tocchet has been, in terms of how he's handled Trevor Zegras. He said that when he first met Zegras, one of the first things he said to him was, "I don't know if you're here for social media clicks or to win hockey games." Wow. And so that was a blunt message, right? And Zegras is one guy that he's slumped a little bit lately, so it's a little concerning that for the last 2 weeks he's been a little bit ineffective. But when you look at his season as a whole, it's been a productive season for Trevor Zegras, and he was the guy that was sort of leading this offense for a long time, especially with Michkov struggling. So, Tocchet's mentioned that off the ice, Zegras has been really attentive, really curious, texting him stuff about what they should do on the power play. Wow. And he's been handling himself in the right way. So tonight I'm going to be, I don't know when you guys are running this, but the Flyers play Columbus here.
Live right
okay.
Now.
All right. Well, the Flyers play Columbus tonight, and I asked Tocchet about Zegras after the Flyers' most recent game, that Islanders game on Monday night, because he hasn't been very good lately. And Tocchet was very blunt. I don't have the quote specifically in front of me, but he said, and I'm paraphrasing, he's been struggling for a little while here now. So I'm going to be interested to see how Zegras responds to that tonight, because this team needs him. They need him to produce offense. And his line with Christian Dvorak and Travis Konechny, they usually need to get on the scoreboard if the Flyers are going to win.
Jimmy, before we cut Kevin off, I'm going to give him a little inside tip. When Pittsburgh was winning back-to-back cups in 17 and 18, Tocchet was the assistant coach.
Yeah.
And they had a guy named Phil Kessel. And if it weren't for Tocchet, I'm not sure Phil would have been as important as what he was with Pittsburgh. And I see him coaching Zegras the same way he coached Kessel. I would ask the coach that. I think it'd be a good story for you to have. I think you'd hit it out of the park.
Yeah, that's good to know. I appreciate that, Pierre.
Always, man. I appreciate you.
Love your work.
I've always thought the world of your work. You know what?
Thanks,
what I love about Kevin the most, firm but fair.
Mm-hmm.
Firm but fair.
Yep.
Thanks.
Some guys are firm and they're way unfair. Firm but fair. Thanks, Kev.
That means a lot.
Appreciate that. All right, Kevin Kurz joining us from The Athletic here to talk some Flyers. We appreciate it. It's always nice to have him on. And, the other thing, too, that's great with him, Pierre, is that he's been on both sides. He worked in team PR as well. So he gets it.
That's what I mean. Like, I know his bet, I spent a lot of time out west, obviously, in my career. And I used to run into him, and he couldn't have been a bigger gentleman. And I love to see the fact he said, we walked in the dressing room and there was Garnet Hathaway in his equipment and everybody else was gone. And then you find out, the concussion might have been worse last year than what maybe everybody's talking about.
Yep.
And everybody says, well, what's wrong with this guy? Well, I'm agreeing with Kevin, because I was a lone wolf. I didn't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. But I think that concussion he got last year fouled him up.
Yeah. Yep, I'd agree. And that just shows you the type of guy and player and teammate.
He's an amazing person, and he's a great teammate. And I bet you, if we'd had Rick Tocchet on now, I bet he'd say one of the hardest decisions he had to make all year was taking that guy out of the lineup. Yeah,
for sure. I'll tell you,
he loves those kinds of players.
Yep, and he was here in Boston, Pierre. You remember he came in that season I referenced earlier, the 22-23 season at the deadline. He was part of that array of moves that Don Sweeney made, and they didn't keep him around. He was a UFA after that. And I just remember a lot of players were like, man, I wish he stuck around. They loved him, and they had only known him for like 2 months.
So his agent's Matt Cater. He just got paid too much money. He had to move on. But the other part is Brian Burke doesn't get enough credit. Brian was working in Calgary, and he took him out of Brown University to give him a shot in Calgary. Yeah. So, again, it's Garnet Hathaway. He's not a first or second line player in the league, but he's a guy, if you have him and he's playing the right way and he's 100% healthy, he makes a huge difference for your team. He really does.
Speaking of Brown University, just this coming over the wire up here.
I know, new coach.
Yeah, Brendan Whitted, a head coach for the last 17 years, stepping down to take family medical leave effective February 20th. We wish the best to him. Man, he's been there for a while.
Yeah, he's coached some good players. The guys have gone on and played in the NHL. He's done a pretty good job with some of the higher end talent. He's got the team they can't get any traction.
Yeah.
I know a lot of kids that go there, they love playing for him, but they just didn't have enough good players.
Yeah. I hear you. All right. Well, let's get to our sponsors and my picks, and then we'll get right to the Q&A here because I see them lining up. We want to remind everybody, when you're in Montreal and you're hungry for a great Italian meal, go over to Vago Italian. They combine old world classics and new Italian dishes for over 23 years. Private dining rooms for any occasion. Open Monday to Saturday evenings and lunch from Tuesday to Friday. They are located at 1336 Green Avenue in Westmount. For reservations, call 514-846-1414. Again, that's 514-846-1414. And, of course, our friends over at Betway, where you can still go all the way with Betway and bet the beauties. And if you're not a member yet, you got to go to that QR code in front of you. Or if you're just listening, go over to the website, go to the members section, fill out the details there to get the amazing deal of up to $300 back on your first deposit. Even if you lose your first bet, you must be 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. Always bet responsibly. And remember, this deal is not available in Ontario. All right, here's my picks for tonight. It's
only 3 games, handsome.
Only 3 games, and I've got 2 picks though.
How'd you make out last night?
The aforementioned New York Islanders.
How did you make out last night?
I was about 500, Pierre.
Okay.
Yeah, 2-2. The aforementioned New York Islanders. I think they're going to put the whipping on the New York Rangers. Give me them on the puck line, plus 180, minus 1.5.
How much is it for Susie to score a goal?
You read my mind. I was just going there. I was literally just going to suggest, and if you want to make a little extra sauce, plus 1,200, 12-1 odds for Carson Soucy to score in his first game as an Islander and his first against his old team, who he was just traded from the New York Rangers. That's a nice little payout there.
Wow.
You want to do that. So who knows? Why not give it a shot? Carson Soucy plus 1,200. And that's my picks. There we go. So let's get to the Q&A. You ready? Down the siren. Guys, I can't wrap my head around the Maple Leafs. If they miss the playoffs, what on earth do you do next?
I don't know, but I'm going to apologize. I picked them to be a good team this year, and I think the injuries crushed them at the start of the year, and I really think they missed Marner way more than they thought internally.
Yeah.
Mitchell Marner made a big difference there, and now they know.
Yeah.
Now they know. They got a lot of heavy lifting to do. They're going to be some tough – I can tell the fans this right now. There'll be some tough conversations there over the next little while. They're heading out west. They play in Seattle, and they play in Vancouver. Then they go to Calgary. Then they go to Edmonton. Then they go to the Olympics. Keith Pelly's not in North America right now. He's actually over in Europe, as Jimmy knows, dealing with a soccer situation. Nothing negative, all positive, but that's part of his role as the overseer of Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. But there's going to be some hard conversations. There has to be, Jimmy.
There has to be. And I think it's one of these things too. I remember earlier in the season when things were going downhill, people were wondering, oh my gosh, could they fire Berube already? I don't think that's going to be the problem. I think
I don't either.
It's the players, and you just have to change the roster to change the culture, and that's it.
There's just going to be, so that's why I mean, there's some really good people there too. Like
there are.
I'll just say this. I would have this long talk with Morgan Riley, and I would say, you've been an amazing Toronto Maple Leaf.
Mm-hmm.
If we could put you in a position to try to go win a cup somewhere else, would you want to do it?
Yeah.
I do the same thing with Jake McCabe. He hasn't obviously been there as long, but Jake's been an unbelievable soldier for them. And there's certain guys I'd do it to Max Domi. I'd have the same conversation with Max.
Mm-hmm.
And the one guy that I think has significant value on the trade market, and I watched him play when he was a kid at Colgate, is Bobby McMahon.
Yeah, I think that's the guy that they can get.
They could get more in return. They need to start rebuilding. But there's certain guys that you want to talk to them. Like, you're not trading Nyes and you're not trading Matthews. The big question mark is, what do you do with Nylander?
I would trade him.
But that's the big.
Yeah, that is the big.
So until you're in the room, it's easy to say, yeah, you got to trade me. But you got to know exactly where everything sits.
Yeah, that's why you don't do it at the deadline, Pierre. I think
it's not one of those deals. You're just going to have to find out and do some fact finding and see where you're at.
All right, next question. Jerbs, realistic trade package for Bobby McMahon. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're going to you could get a draft pick and a real good prospect, or you can get one very good player that can help you in a different position.
Mm-hmm. All right, next question. Tony in Montreal, why is the stand-up style of goaltending not coached anymore? With all these short side goals above the goalie's shoulder being allowed in, you'd think that would be a solution. Good point, Tony.
It all changed with the Allaire brothers and Patrick Roy, and it just took off from there. Brodeur was really one of the last guys who used a smaller glove, who didn't become a human gigantosaurus, because that's what they all are. But I give the Allaire brothers a lot of credit, man. Those guys were really good at their craft at coaching goalies to be better. But it changed. It changed 3 generations of goalies. Brodeur Roy started in '86.
Yeah.
And that was the advent of the butterfly. And look where we are now. It's freaking it's 4 decades.
I know. It's amazing.
4 decades.
All right. What do we got? Next question. Franco, I know it's a long shot, but do you see a world where Nico Hischier can potentially become available? He's 27. He's a UFA after next season. He's another amazing fit I see for the Habs, even if it's unlikely. Ooh.
That would be wow, Frank.
Who?
That would be massive for Montreal. I don't see that. I'd be surprised. He is a leader. This guy is a champion human being. So I'm just going to tell you, I'll take you inside baseball a little bit. That draft at number 4, look it up for me right now, Jimmy. I believe number 4 was Cale Makar. I hope I'm right.
Yep, I'm going there right now. So, yeah, that was a 2017 draft. Number 4, right on the nail there.
And then number 1 was Nico Hischier, right?
Yep. And then Nolan Patrick.
Well, that I don't want to go there, but
yeah,
it's a tough.
And then Miro Heiskanen, Cal Makar, and Elias Patterson. First 5 picks.
So the reason I'm just going to take inside baseball. The reason why Makar didn't go number 1 in that one is because he was playing in the Alberta Junior Hockey League, number 1. And number 2, they had such a good interview in Jersey with Nico Hischier. They were convinced he was a long-term solution to leadership, which they were hoping to, help rebuild. That's what Ray Shero was thinking, want to help rebuild the organization, along with Paul Castron, who was a chief amateur scout at the time. And they actually picked a really good player. They actually picked a really good player and an awesome person. Awesome person.
If they could actually pull that off, the Canadiens, they would then have the number 13 and the top overall pick in that draft. You know who went at 13 in that draft, right?
No, tell me.
Mr. Nick Suzuki.
There you go, to Vegas.
Oh,
that was the heist. That was a heist by Marc Bergevin.
Yep. All right, let's go. What do we got? GB 8814. Pierre, do the goalie coaches usually travel with the team?
Yes.
Yep. All right, next question. Mr. White, hey boys, what's your take on Andre Palat being traded to the Islanders? Despite Palat not being an offensive player, I think they'll truly miss his leadership in what is a very young and soft core. I think it's a great pickup.
Mr. White, I like his notes. Mr. White's good, man. They'll miss his leadership. He's a high character person. I'm surprised none of the national pundits who know so much about hockey and the history of players don't recognize that kid played in Drummondville when a guy named Roy was coaching in Quebec. Just a curious thought.
There we go. Next question. We agree with you, Mr. White. Chris Gaming. I read some rumors that the Pens are working hard to trade for Robertson. Jason Robertson, that is. What will it cost, and do we become cup contenders if we get him?
It's going to cost, and I don't know about cup contenders still, but I'm so proud of the Penguins. I am. I'm really, as somebody that really respects good coaching, they've done a really good job. They've done a fantastic job. Dan Muse and his staff really are to be saluted. They've been solid in every aspect of the game. They really have been, Jimmy. I watch their games, and it just blows me away, the improvement from last year to this year. And Todd Nelson, who's worked with that defense, deserves a huge amount of credit. Wotherspoon's better. Kulaksen's coming over is better. Ryan Shea's better. Connor Clifton's better. Carlson and Letang are a ton better than where they were a year ago. That defense has really improved, and that's on Todd Nelson. He deserves a lot of credit. Mike Stothers has gone there and done a real good job. They got a lot of good stuff going on there.
It's interesting, Pierre, because I've heard Kyle Dubas and Jason Robinson linked for a while. Like, he's always had interest in him. And then it makes sense.
He had his brother. He took his brother to Toronto. I mean,
exactly.
So
yep.
There's a sense of familiarity there. I don't know if they're going to be able to get him out of Dallas. Like, I don't know if they can afford the price point right now in this part of their development. But if they ever did, I mean, think about what they've done there. Okay, Chinakhov was an acquisition. Kindle was a draft. Novak was a trade last year. Brazeau was a free agent signing. Dewar's a guy they knew from Toronto. Lizotte was a re-sign. Achari was a guy they knew from Toronto. So you look at, Wotherspoon was a free agent. Kulak was a trade. Shea was somebody that was look at all the guys. That's all I'm going to say. Now, and then you look at goal. Skinner and Sheloffs are both acquisitions. Like, they've done a heck of a job.
Yeah, and they got the other Russian in the minors there too.
Yeah, Murashov. He's really good. But I'm just saying they've done a great job.
Yeah, they have.
I can't wait to get there. Hopefully, you're going to be coming with me for Mario's camp. That'd be good.
By the way, texting with our good friend Kevin Stevens. He says hello to you, Pierre. All right. Next question. David Robinson, how are Toronto fans feeling about the Mark Savard as the senseless sacrificial lamb? The players' feelings? Yeah, wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
That stunk.
Yeah,
he'll land on his feet. I know he watches. Savvy, if you're watching.
Savvy, we didn't support that. And
we don't support it, and we'd love to have you on sometime, my friend.
Yep.
All right, next question. Vincent Yoel. Hello, gentlemen. Question. You think Toronto strips it down to the foundation, and would you include Willie and Austin as unmovable pieces?
I wouldn't. I don't think you can trade Austin.
No.
Just because you got to have players that can sell tickets too.
Yep.
And you're not trading John Tavares.
Nope. I think they try to do maybe what Don Sweeney did last year, on the fly a bit. Do something like that.
Like what Washington did a couple years ago. Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
All right, next question. Michael Maloney, Pierre, Jimmy, love the show. Fluto says it sounds like James Higgins is ready to sign. Bruins are in a legit playoff race. Do you really think he can earn a top 6 spot in Marco Sturm's lineup? I don't see it.
Michael, I know the player really well. I don't think he's ready for a top 6. So I'll just use an example. Like Donzlos Melis, who's playing in Providence, is going to go represent Latvia in the Olympics. Like, you can't say that Higgins was better than him last year in Hockey East. You can't. You just can't. And so, Don's isn't ready to be an NHL player right now. He's a good player, but he's not ready to be an NHL player. Higgins is a good player, but I don't think he's ready to be a top 6.
I would put him right in Providence if he wants to leave. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Exactly. All right, next question. Juice, Pierre, the Slavkovsky, Kapanen, and Demidov line is not producing the way it was a couple of weeks ago. Would you put Slav back on the top line? I
would. Here's the problem. They got Patrick Laine back at practice today, and he and Tocchet rotated on the top line with Suzuki and Caulfield. So I don't know what the plan is there. It's going to be interesting because Colorado's in Ottawa tonight, and then Colorado's in Montreal tomorrow. And so that's a big test for Montreal. But that was a heck of a win by the Canadiens last night. A heck of a win.
Was
against a very urgent team from Vegas.
I want to bring that up. It was great. I was watching that and the Boston game together, and they both go to overtime.
You watch too many games, Jimmy.
Not as many as you. Next question. Jerb, speaking of Washington, does a rebuild not make sense once Ovi leaves? Older roster with good young players to start over with, or does this become Tom Wilson's team?
Well, Tom Wilson, Ryan Leonard, they're guys there, Pierre-Luc Dubois. They've got, and Hershey's got guys coming. They've done a good job there. It's just, I don't know how much does Ovi have left, Jimmy? Like, I'm not talking about contract. I'm talking about
just in the tank.
Yeah,
maybe a year, right? If you want.
That's kind of how I see it too.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, next question. Rodney, hi gentlemen, great podcast. Thank you. I wanted to ask you guys, is it true that the Habs have talked to the Fleury camp?
I don't know. I heard that, you know what? It's interesting that Rodney would bring that up. It makes sense in some ways, but I don't see Marc-Andre coming back. I just don't see it. It would be unbelievable if he did. It would be. He's amazing. He's just an amazing person. Every time I see him, I just laugh. He makes me laugh. He's healthy. He's a good guy to be around because he makes you laugh.
Great, man, that would be something if he ever did it. Oh, wow.
Well, I'll tell you what, you wouldn't be able to buy a ticket for the first home game that he started.
No, that would be insane.
Could you imagine?
Oh my gosh! Wow. Maybe we'll have to have Alan Walsh on again and ask him. Yeah. We'll see. All right, next question. Ethan Russell, what's up, Ethan? I feel like I'd want Michael team heading into the playoffs. What do you think? I think some teams are eyeing him.
Well, they are, Ethan. But here's Ethan. I just want to throw this at you. Michael Bunting ended up in Pittsburgh when Kyle Dubas went there, and Kyle Dubas liked Michael Bunting. He brought him to Toronto. Why did Kyle Dubas get rid of Michael Bunting last year?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm asking the question because I always try to trace how did a player end up in a certain place and what was the relationship like from the place that he left? Who actually moved him out? Did they have a previous relationship work-wise? So the question I would ask is, why did Kyle Dubas move him last year?
I think it's a very valid question. All right, next question. What do we got? W. Travis Mitchell. Pierre, in November, I asked about the Habs trading for Stamkos, and the answer then was a hard no. What has Stamkos done to change your mind? Is it purely on-ice results?
Yeah, the on-ice results and the relationship with St. Louis and the fact that you watch Montreal's team and they still have a hole on the right side on the top line because you want to keep Kapanen and Slafkovsky and obviously Demidov together. I mean, Steven would fit in. Think about the credibility that would do to their
That's what they need.
dressing room.
Yeah.
Stanley Cup rings scream at this time of the year. And he's so mad. He wants to prove so many people wrong, including the people in Tampa.
Yep. And imagine you do
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot there to unpack. At the beginning of the year, he looked disinterested. And then all of a sudden he started going. And I did say, and Jimmy knows, one of our most loyal viewers sent me a note after I said he's got plenty of game left, and he was giving it to me pretty good. And then I gave it back to him after Stammer started scoring a lot.
Yep. All right, next question. Simo, Pierre and Jimmy, who do you think is the best UFA coming this summer that Chicago should grab? And thank you guys for everything and all you do for the sport. And Pierre, thanks for all the support for Elijah. It means a lot.
Yeah, way to go, Elijah. Dad, thanks for the text. I don't know.
The market's getting thin.
There's really not a big free agency market. It's like nuts.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, right now it could be Jason Robinson, right? That if he's not signed, I don't know if he makes it though. He could get traded and then sign wherever he goes. Who knows? I mean, that's a thin market right now, Pierre.
It's unbelievable.
On that note, though, I think we see a lot more trades because of it, because that's going to be the only way to get the guys, right?
I like the thought. That's a good thought. Yep. No, it's a good thought.
All right. What do we got? Next question. Jacob Perez. What's up, Jake? What would it cost Montreal to get Connor Murphy or Zach Whitecloud? A solid lower cost right D option. Could Doc fetch either one?
I think he could actually. Yeah. I don't know about the Doc to Chicago, but I think the Doc to Calgary, a Western Canadian kid, I could see that definitely being something. You know what? Now it depends on how much they value Whitecloud at this stage of his career.
Yeah.
You know, it would be a 4 or 5 year spread on Whitecloud to Doc in favor of Doc being younger. Whitecloud fits on Montreal.
No.
He fits on Montreal big
I think
time.
it comes down to Craig Conroy and Huska there, deciding, do we want this guy around to help our young guys?
So you see, Whitecloud plays with Lane Hudson.
Oh, that'd be great.
And then Carrier plays with Goalie. That's 1 through 6. So you got Matheson and Dobson.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, the last two are Goalie and Carrier. That's a defense you can win with.
Imagine
seriously.
The Habs got Whitecloud and Stamkos. There's some Stanley Cup experience right there.
Well, that changed. I'll tell you what, that would change a lot in the Eastern Conference.
Wow, that would be something. All right, next question. Hendricks that can play. There were like 10 scouts in the Bell Center last game. Do you think there's a trade incoming, especially with the St. Louis Blues? Hendricks, yeah, they're always there.
Every game, there's 10 scouts in all these different cities. I love look, and I did a show last night where we actually showed the scouts that were there from all the different.
I saw that.
It was on Tony's show. Tony picked that out. I don't know. St. Louis is open for business. They are.
When is it, Pierre? When is it though? When you can read more into it? Is it when you see a GM or an AGM or a director of pro scouting?
How about if you have 4 straight visits?
Yeah, that's where I was going to go consistently.
I can just speak to it from experience. When we did the Francis, Samuelson, Jennings trade for Cullen, Parker, and Zalapsky, I spent 7 days in Hartford. I was able to watch three home games in Hartford and 2 games in Springfield. That was Hartford's farm team.
Yeah.
So I was able to see their whole component of player. and then we could talk. It was Bob Johnson, the whole coaching staff, Bob, Craig Patrick, Scotty, myself, and Greg Malone. Those were all the people on the calls. Yeah. And then the trade was made. It's a good story. The trade was made, and I was actually about to fly to Europe, and there were no phones, so I'm waiting for the phone to ring before I get on the plane to go. And I called Scotty, and I go, "Why hasn't the trade been announced?" He goes, "They can't find John Cullen, and they don't want, because there were no cell phones.
Yeah,
they're not going to release a trade till they find John." Right. John was at a movie. He was at the movie theater. Eventually, they found him and they released the trade.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All right, what do we got? Scoring wise, Michkov's early production is ahead of Suzuki. This is Alexei Novikov is the questionnaire. Caulfield and Slav in their first 2 to 3 seasons. Why are people so quick to call him a bust? I don't think anyone's calling him a bust.
Just people that are haters. I don't think anybody's calling him
I think it's more people are just. Yeah, you know what? Pierre nailed it. It's just people complain. That's it.
But I don't think he's a bust, but I like the fact what Kevin reported, which I thought was top end. He's already committed to staying there during the Olympics, which is good. He's going to come back earlier to train in Philadelphia. And I've been down there during those times when those guys train there. It's really good. They got a really good program there. So I think that's really solid. That's great intel by Kevin Kurz, by the way. Really good.
Just messaging him, by the way. All right, next question. What do we got? Mitch Boyd. What's up, Mitch? Are you guys shocked with the Islanders making consecutive trades with their rivals? Seems unheard of. You know, I would say yes, Mitch, but we're seeing that more and more in the last couple of years.
You know, I was around. I was doing a game with Doc and Eddie on Long Island. I'm pretty sure it was on Long Island. And the Islanders from the Devils got Palmieri and Andy Green.
I remember that.
Andy Green, 2 guys from New Jersey going over to play for the Islanders.
Yeah.
Like, unbelievable. And, you know, obviously Lou knew them. And Tommy Fitch was the manager then. It wasn't Ray.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot more of that. But I mean, I get where Mitch is coming from. It would traditionally, you never see that. So.
Yeah.
All right, next question. What do we got? Gabriel Lamb, would Laine be traded at this deadline? I don't see him in the future for Montreal. I think there's a good possibility, Gabe.
I'm looking forward to watching him play a couple games.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll determine where they keep him.
You think he'd come in before the break?
I think he might come in sooner rather than later.
I would too, just to get a glimpse.
Yeah, you got to get a feel, because if not, then you're going to have to move him.
Yep. All right, next question. Mr. White again. Is New Jersey in trouble with Jack Hughes? They sink or swim with him despite having elite talent on the roster. It feels like everything revolves around number 86.
So this is one of those summers, Mr. White, where as whomever the coaching staff and the management team are, and I'm going to say that it stay the same. You go away with the player. You go somewhere in the woods, not a golf trip, not a sailing trip. You go in the woods. I'm telling you.
The woods. This is getting scary here.
And you go to a cabin somewhere and you talk. And here's what we love about you. Here's where we think you can be better. And here's where we know you better be better.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those hard conversations we've talked. Sometimes you got to do that. And I'm never going to tell you the players I've had to do that with or been around when we've done it as a staff, but you got to do that.
All right. Next question. We got any more? Yep. David Robinson. What's up, Dave? Who is the player who has done most charity community work in the last 50 years, whether local, national, or international? I don't know offhand.
Well, I don't know about the most, but I'll say Jean Beliveau and all those old Montreal Canadiens players who mostly have passed away.
Yeah.
Those guys were amazing. As a kid growing up there and seeing what they would do playing softball or going to golf tournaments, and it was such an honor to be invited with them summer in, summer out to go to the golf events with them as they all got older. You know, we just lost Phil Goyette the other day. Mm-hmm. Bobby Russo passed away the other day. You know, it was amazing to be around those men. They gave back so much. But I'll give you an example. Tommy Barrasso created the Ashley Barrasso Cancer Foundation because his daughter Ashley had cancer. And he did a lot to give back. Mario Lemieux's done an unbelievable job with the Lemieux Foundation. They give millions of dollars every year. Millions, Jimmy, not hundreds of thousands, millions.
It's awesome.
It's unbelievable. So I can't quantify who gave the most, but if you were to ask me, sweat equity wise, those old Montreal Canadiens players, man, oh man, did those guys do a lot.
Yeah, and I'll credit, just because I know from being around at the Bruins alumni, led by Bob Sweeney, does a great job. And David, I know, is from the North Shore. He's from Lowell, Mass, Pierre. David, I'm sure you saw guys like Brad Park, Terry O'Reilly, Rick Middleton, all those guys, Kenny Linsman, always up around the North Shore, up the beach, doing stuff for charity. So they do a great job as well.
Yeah,
That's one of the things I love about hockey, Pierre. Honestly, I've covered other sports, and I'm not saying that anything bad about the other sports, but I just feel from what I've grown to learn is that hockey's the best at that. Like, it's just their players are amazing the way they give back to the community.
Jean Beliveau is unbelievable. I'm just telling you, like, I saw it firsthand. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Later on in his life, I was at TSN and I did a couple commercials with him.
Wow.
He was sick. And they asked him very politely, they said, Mr. Beliveau, is there anything we can do for you before we go to, shoot the commercial? And he goes, well, I'd love a glass of water, please. Just like that. They brought him a bottle of water, and he just took a little sip, and he says, oh, thank you so much. Like, he was just so polite.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
That's great. All right, next question. Tony, Montreal. Why would the Habs fire the goalie coach after win, mind you, without finding a replacement in Laval? What's the logic behind that?
Oh, they probably had this orchestrated for a while.
Yeah.
It's
And
not one of,
spoke today.
Yeah. That's not one of those things they just did at the spur of the moment after having breakfast,
Yeah.
This has been in the Jimmy knows I've had a vibe about this for a while, and that's why I said I'd have the goalie coach on speed dial, fire the GM and the coach, because I want to know what's going on every day in practice with my goalies.
All right, next question. Ethan Russell, do you think it's going to be hard to find a number for a contract extension for guys like Darren Radish? Oof, he's got one coming.
That's not a hard negotiation. I'd love to talk to Julian Breezeball about that. That's not a hard negotiation.
Were you ever in a situation like that, Pierre, is what he's asking?
Yeah, a couple. Well, Mark Jansen's contract was tough because that's when guys were going from 250 to 800. It's a pretty big jump back then. So Mark's contract was tough. We got it done though. Mark was a gentleman. So was his representative. Nicky Kiprios's contract, I was a big part of that. Got, like I said, guys were going from like 150 to like 300, and then all of a sudden a bunch of guys went up because of one contract, Warren Reichel's contract in LA, and they all started getting over 500. So that was a pretty hard one. So there's some tough ones. I mean, yeah, there's some tough ones, but I think the biggest thing when you negotiate, don't make it personal. Jimmy knows, and he's not going to say anything, but I did a contract not that long ago before I started doing this with Jimmy, and people in the negotiation try to make stuff personal. I was just like, no, let's just stop. This is ridiculous, and then we eventually got the deal done, which was good, but negotiating and making stuff personal never works. It just doesn't work.
All right, next question. Hendricks, what's the best and worst firing of a coach for the teams involved?
I'm trying to figure out what that means.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question, Hendricks.
Best and worst firing?
Like meaning the result, and let us know if you meant like the result or how it was done or.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to talk about it, Daryl Sutter going to LA and winning the Cups.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. And then St. Louis, Berube going in and winning the Cups or winning the Cup.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be two just off the top of my head.
Yep.
That'd be pretty substantial.
All right, next question. Pierre, Line to the Hawks in the offseason. Kyle Davidson, take a gamble on him. What do you think?
Yeah. Let's see what he does. I just want to see the kid play. I just want to see him play. And then at the beginning, when he wasn't playing very well, there wasn't a lot of pace in his game. So let's see what he does coming back.
Hendrick said we read it right. He meant the result, so we got that right.
Okay.
All right, next question. Tony Teddy, 2060. What is a common process for trades? Is it a phone call and I'll let you know? Is it a virtual meeting? Is it I'll get back to you? Is it a high ball, low ball offer thing? I'm sure every trade is different.
It is. It's a great question, though. I love the way he phrased it, too. Way to go, Tony. Sometimes it could be pro scouts meeting in the press box of a different rank and say, hey, would you be interested in trading for Jimmy Murphy? And the other guy goes, let me call my boss.
Yep.
Or the other thing could be you're at a game and coaches talk over coffee maybe, and back in my day, at least they did. And I don't know if these guys even know who each other is anymore. And you'd say, what are you doing with that player you got down in the American Hockey League? And you say, well, not much. And then you call your GM and say, hey, we might be able to get Murphy out of, Bridgeport. So there's so many different ways. The big trades take time. They don't just happen in a second. I watched Berkey orchestrate the Christopher Pronger deal, and it involved Calgary and San Jose, and he worked. I was there the whole time. He worked. It was a hard deal, but he got it done. All
right, next question. I think we have time for a few more because, Pierre, you got to get over the TSN 600.
No, it's all right.
Mitch Boyd, I had a debate with a friend today between careers of Kane and Stamkos. Both have been incredible, but who stands out more? And
it's got to be Kaner, only because Kaner's got the freaking Stanley Cups, and not that Stammer doesn't. Stammer's got, the two of them, but Patrick it's everything. It's just, I'm a big Stamkos guy, though. Stamkos got 600 goals. He's got 600 goals.
I know.
It's unbelievable. Like, think of it.
It's
hard. It's one of those where one guy's Canadian, one guy's American. Stammer's never played in the Olympics. Kaner has. Stammer played in one World Junior. Kaner only played in one. And that was in Leksand, Sweden. He played in that game. He played in the Carey Price shootout game.
Oh.
And Jonathan Toews, Kane did. He played in that game.
And he's tied with Madonna now, right?
Yeah. So if you were going to ask me, I had a choice to pick Mike Madonna or Patrick Kane. I'll tell you right now, I would pick Mike Madonna. Mike Madonna's huge.
What if
he could skate like you can't, Jimmy. I'm telling you, I had to drop game plans for that guy. Bob Gainey got really mad at me one night. They were playing in Hartford, and I put the boots. And I didn't do it, but we had a plan for Mike, and Bob was really mad. He was like eyeballing me. I think he wanted to come over and pound me.
Doing your job.
What's that?
You're just doing your job.
Oh, no, but it's the way it was. It's okay. I have so much respect for Bob. But I remember I was giving one of the officials a lip service because I thought Madonna slashed one of my guys that I had devised to play against Mike. And Gainey goes, "You're going to let him talk to you that way?" he was taunting the referee to give me a bench minor.
That's great. Good stuff. All right, that's it for our questions. We appreciate them. Great questions as always. Big thanks to Kevin Kurtz of The Athletic for talking Flyers with us. Thanks to Shane working the boards up in Montreal. Remember, we're going to keep reminding you, Pierre and I will be live from the ECAC Women's Tournament in the beginning of March, and then 2 weeks later, the men's tournament, both from Lake Placid. Looking forward to that.
Don't we have something happening St. Patrick's Day too?
We do, but it's not. We can't say anything yet. It's not.
Oh, okay, thanks.
It's right there. Just pushing it over the line. All right, and we will probably have an announcement soon for that. Thanks to everybody up there, and by the way, too, thanks to our great Sick Podcast crew, to Sammy and Aniello and Juliana, everybody up there.
They're all going out to Frisco.
I was just going to say that. Good for them. They deserve it. This is what now, the third Super Bowl they've been to in a row?
I don't even know. I sent them a bunch of restaurants to go to, though.
Good for them. They're going to enjoy it.
I told them there's one place you got to go, and if you don't go, I'll be mad at you. It's called Original Joe's. It's in San Jose. It's maybe 10 minutes from this football stadium in Santa Clara. Oh, that was my go-to spot. I had my own chair right at the end of the bar. I'd watch the TV.
You were Norm.
What's that?
You were Norm.
Yeah, I was Norm. She was great. The lady would chicken parm, yes. Pasta, yes. Perfect. Broccoli, yes. Thank you. Bring it. Put the games on. And Jamie Baker, one of my old players from St. Lawrence, he was doing the media with San Jose. He played there forever. So he'd come and meet me for dinner, and we'd just sit there and watch games, and
Nice.
it was great. I
Yeah.
love that place.
Oh, the Original Joe's?
Original Joe's.
You
And
ever take Jumbo Joe there or what?
What's that?
Jumbo Joe ever go or not?
Oh, for sure he's been in there. Guaranteed. But the name, it's right across the street from the courthouse in San Jose.
Okay.
It's downtown. And the name, there's the entranceway to the restaurant, and then there's the bar entrance.
Gotcha.
And the bar entrance is called the Hideaway.
I like it.
And it's an amazing place. Anybody goes to San Jose, go to Original Joe's.
All right, you heard it there. If you're going out to the Super Bowl, check it out. Pierre McGuire. That's what I said, Pierre. We got to do a restaurant book too. You could nail it for a lot of people when they.
I would do anything with you, Jimmy. With the book stuff, that'd be good.
Yeah. All right, let's rock and roll. We'll see you here back tomorrow on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.